The distance between here and home. When she was a child, Phoenix was just the word printed on license plates in front of her at red lights. Back then, home was a faded mining town hugged by two rivers and a long memory. Everyone knew everyone, and everyone knew her, or thought they did. She used to lie awake at 16 and imagine boarding a bus and dissolving into some faraway skyline where no one would call her that girl from the Milam place. At 18, she laughed and didn't look back, except in dreams, the bad kind. Now, 20 years later, she sat on a flight descending into the same place she'd once prayed to escape. The hills below were exactly as she'd left them, except smaller, like someone had quietly deflated her childhood without telling her. She pressed her forehead to the window and waited for the familiar twist in her stomach. Dread, resignation, maybe duty. Instead, she just felt distance. Her brother picked her up in the same truck he'd been driving when she left. He still lived 5 miles from their childhood home, in a house with a pond and a swing set and a wife who waved through the kitchen window like someone in a commercial for jam. His kids came running out barefoot, ponytails flying, calling her Aunt Cat like the title had always fit. They were happy here. Somehow that fact made her both grateful and alien. That night, sitting by his pond with a beer in her hand, she watched the fireflies flicker across the water like sparks from a quiet fuse. She thought, I like this part. I just don't belong to it. Her brother leaned back in his chair. You ever think about moving back? He asked, casually, the way men ask about the weather when they're really asking if you're lonely. She laughed before she could help it. I have nightmares I'm stuck here again. He looked surprised, then shrugged. I get it. Some people are roots, some people are wings. She didn't know which she was. Maybe both, maybe neither. In the morning, she drove alone through town. The old grocery store was now a vape shop. The high school looked smaller and more beige than her memory allowed. Nobody recognized her at the gas station, and she didn't recognize herself in the smudged restroom mirror. At a red light, she glanced down one of the country lanes she used to take to avoid being seen. Once, the thought of driving it again would have made her skin crawl. Now it meant nothing at all, just pavement and trees and a story she'd already finished. On her last night, her brother grilled chicken and her sister-in-law set the table with cloth napkins printed with sunflowers. They talked about deer sightings and property taxes and who was expecting a baby next. It was warm and it was kind, and it was not hers. The next day, she hugged them all goodbye with unfeigned affection. At TSA, she felt herself begin to excel. When the plane lifted off, she looked down again at the shrinking quilt of fields and roads. The place had given her memory and her brother comfort and her nightmares their setting, but not her home. Home, she knew now, was Phoenix. The dry heat, the blooming saguaros, the crowded farmers markets, and the strangers who'd become family just because she arrived open and empty-handed one day. Whenever she flew back from a visit, she took the next day off work to buy coffee at her favorite spot, walk through the desert garden near her apartment, and remind herself, this is where my life lives. Some people return to where they began and feel the ground welcome them back like they never left. Others go back and feel time closing in around their ribs. And some, like her, return only long enough to remember why they had to leave. She looked out at the clouds stitched pink by sunrise and smiled. The plane wasn't taking her away. It was taking her home.